live. All right, everybody, welcome back to the final forum in the Green Bay City Council Nonpartisan Forums and Debates here from Gathering on Broadway, presented by the Green Bay Llama. This is District 11. Once again, community advocate Rhonda Sitnick, pastor Jerry Baker from Samaritan's Heart Ministries with District 11.
Thanks, Jason. This is our final City Council nonpartisan candidate debate forum with District 11. And we have one candidate here who is running, first-time candidate Michael, is it Poradek? Sorry, thank you.
That's okay.
Michael Poradek. Michael's candidate Melinda Eck declined our invitation, and so it will be just you today. So we look forward to speaking with you on very important topics. How this is going to go, we're going to have you give an opening statement you choose. There will be questions, 9 of them, that were solicited through the public forum, the Green Bay Llama Forum, as well as Jerry and I put some together ourselves. And then you will get 2 minutes to respond to the questions. There will be no rebuttal because it's just you, and then you will have an opportunity for a closing statement. Any questions?
Sounds good.
Okay. So you can go ahead and begin with an opening statement.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody watching on live stream and watching the recording. First of all, thank you, Rhonda, and thank you, Jerry, for doing this, and thank you to everyone who helped organize this opportunity for us to talk about the issues and talk about it in a nonpartisan, independent way. I'm Michael Poradek. I'm running for the first time in District 11 for Alderman. I was born in Green Bay, raised in the area, and have decided to continue to grow up here in Green Bay. For the past 8 years, I've been living in District 11. After college, I moved back to the area. Decided I really wanted to get back, love the community, love the people. I wanted to settle here, and have been involved in the community. I became a neighborhood president about 5 years ago. Chair now of Green Bay Neighborhoods, which is the council of all the different neighborhood presidents from across the city. So I've been able to be engaged in those conversations, and really neighbors encouraged me to consider city council. So I took a look at it and decided this was the year I wanted to run. Wanted to focus on local issues that are being talked about already in our neighborhoods, things that I talk to neighbors about, things that we are impacted by on a daily basis. And that includes talking about increasing public safety, working on our infrastructure, which has been a big topic of conversation, especially our roads, but also bicycle and pedestrian walkways, bicycleways, talking about community economic development, and then talking about communication. One of the big issues for residents was talking about, we don't really know what's going on in city council. And we want people to know and want to have those conversations. We want to know from our alder what are the situations, but also someone to be able to listen to them and listen to the concerns that are going on. And so I wanted to make that really a part of my campaign, and I wanted to do that not only during the election, but also if elected as well. So it's been great. It's been a great experience so far. I've been able to meet lots of wonderful neighbors who I have not had a chance to meet yet, and have a great conversation about the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. First question we'll begin with is, do you believe the oversight of city elections as it exists is adequate? If not, what would you change? Would you allow a third-party entity to be involved in the election process again?
Yes, the elections have been a big topic, of course, especially after the primary. It came out a lot of the news. I've been getting a lot of questions about it from neighbors. We definitely want to make sure our elections are secure. We want to make sure that people know what's going on with our elections. We want to make sure that information is transparent of how they're being handled. I was a poll worker, and I've been a poll worker in the 2020 election. I understand there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of moving pieces for us to be aware of on the city level. And it's a lot of dedicated volunteers who are giving their time to assist. We also want to make sure that we are getting information correct when we're posting things and when we're talking about things and talking about the process. It can be very confusing for people. We want to make sure that voting is accessible to everyone. I would be hesitant, we start to talk about third parties getting involved, and we have to be careful about that, because are those community organizations like the League of Women Voters promoting advocacy and assisting? Are those third-party candidates from outside of Green Bay? What does that exactly look like? I think it's worth the conversation. I think people want to have that conversation. I think that we can continue to make elections better. There's never going to be a perfect election that runs exactly smoothly, but we need to make sure that we're doing our best. We're putting our best resources forward. We also need to make sure, I think one of the issues that came up after the last election is how we communicate things when there's issues that do come up. And I think that things have continued to be discussed about who speaks to the city, who speaks on behalf of elections, who are the point people to contact, and what does that look like. So I think that we can continue to improve elections in the city. I think it's something people are asking for, something that's worth getting people involved with and getting people's input on, and we continue to make them better for the city.
And could you touch on the third-party entity?
The third-party entity, again, figuring out what people are talking about when they're talking about third-party entities. So are these people coming from the outside to run the elections? Are these people with community organizations in our neighborhoods getting involved in the election process with City Hall as well? We want to make sure that, of course, we have the right personnel and staff in our city to be able to handle the elections and handle questions that come up and concerns. But we also want to make sure that we're having people understand. One of the big questions I've gotten from people is, how do I find out what district I'm in? How do I find out where to vote? And how do I find out where to bring my absentee ballot to or not? And so those types of questions we need to be working on as well to get the information out to voters. So if everyone is approaching voting in a good, positive way, people are able to vote. It's important for us all to encourage our neighbors to vote, but we need to make sure that they understand what are the rules, what are the procedures going on, so it can be a calm process rather than something that's stressful that's going to turn people away in the end.
Question about the issue of homelessness, and as I've asked this, I made it clear it's become personal to me. Our ministry is in an area where we deal with a lot of homeless people. I'm going to treat this just a bit from the way it's been asked previously, that there are people in the community, a fair number staying in shelters who are experiencing homelessness. That number does not include individuals who are living in cars, storage units, as I say, basement to basement and couch to couch. I'm going to focus in on that. I'll ask, as we have the previous candidates, has the city done enough and what more can be done? But my personal experience is there are what I would call the functional homeless, where they never get into the system, not even the shelters and so on. Is there a hidden homelessness issue that necessarily, and maybe even more profound, than we think already, and then, dovetail into what can be done about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So to your first point about homelessness in general, and then kind of narrowing in on the issue you're talking about too, but of course we need to be always doing more for our homeless population. I mean, one person living without an adequate home, without a safe place to live, is too many in our community. I think that in Green Bay, in a community like Green Bay, we value community, we value our neighbors, we want to support our neighbors as much as possible. That's what draws people in and keeps people in Green Bay. We have about 15% of our population that are living in poverty right now, according to the statistics. And when you look at that, it's over 1 in 10 of our neighbors are living in poverty. And I think that not only do we have to talk about people who are currently experiencing homelessness, but also those who are on the verge of experiencing homelessness. Because if we want to try to really systemically create change in the homeless population here in Green Bay, we need to also look at those who are on the cusp of becoming and experiencing homelessness. So it's a holistic issue that we need to work on with our shelters, with our nonprofit organizations, with our city. So it's not just one, we can't just approach one if we do this one piece. And there's also, of course, all the different factors that tie into homelessness. The 5-year plan that has been worked out by the coalition, we're working on looking at that from an expansive point, bringing everyone to the table, figuring out who's not at the table, who needs to be, and then we need to approach homelessness. So of course, as an alder, people can be advocating for keeping the homeless population and those who are experiencing poverty in general in our city at the forefront, into the discussions, into the dialogue when issues, whatever the issue is that comes up in our community, is facing the city council. So it's a multifaceted approach. We need to be aware of it, we need to continue to talk about it, but also always need to be part of that process with the plan of assisting with organizations who are trying to make a difference, who are already making a difference in our community, and be able to continue and grow that in the future years to come.
How important is the perception or even reality of crime when it comes to the quality of life in a neighborhood? What can you tell constituents that you are committed to doing when it comes to reducing gun and drug-related crime?
At every neighborhood association meeting that I'm a part of, for my neighborhood association, and then from the wider neighborhoods across the city, we always talk about safety. We always talk about crime and concerns, and we offer that opportunity for people to talk about what are they experiencing, what are they hearing, not just in the news, but also what they're hearing from neighbors, what they're seeing in the streets, what they're hearing from one another. And so we always want to have that opportunity for people to express concerns. I want to make sure that I'm available as an alder to hear concerns. I'm not going to only be able to listen to what are the news stories that are coming out in the paper, what are the things on TV, what am I hearing from constituents, and do they feel comfortable coming to me, whether that be from a phone call, whether that be an in-person conversation, whether that's on social media, using all the different avenues. I mean, it's 2022, we need to make sure that we're using a lot of different avenues to talk about crime. So when situations come up, we can talk about it proactively and right away, rather than waiting until the next time we might run into one another and talk. So in the neighborhood associations, I think that's a great thing to continue to foster. I think with neighbors, it's important to foster the perception. You bring up, the perception of crime and what the crime currently is. The lesser crime rates are going down in the city. We have continued to hear about some of the more violent crimes that have gone up over them. I think there were, obviously with gun violence, we heard there was around 80 gunshots in the city in the last calendar year. Of course, it's never good. Of course, we want to talk about it. Of course, it's an issue. But we have to keep it in perspective according to the whole city. Where are these issues going on? For my neighborhood over in District 11, the shooting, especially on Military and Mason, at the corner of Military and Mason, really shook people because it's settling closer to home when that does happen. But we also have to keep in perspective that it was a one-time isolated incident as well. We need to talk about what is causing that we've had this recent increase. And one way to tackle that is to have those conversations at the community level, to be able to understand where are these situations coming up. There was a violent crime recently in my district, and people were saying, I want to move out of the neighborhood because this violent crime occurred. And I said, please don't move out of the neighborhood, first of all. Please don't move out of the district. We didn't like having you here, and we are a safe neighborhood. We are a safe district. There are going to be things that come up, but it's how we react to those. Working with our law enforcement, working with our community officials, working with our city council representatives, be proactive to understand what are the causes of those isolated incidents. Are they a wider trend that's going on in the city, and how do we tackle that? And how do we do that in ways that are going to be longer than just a one-time fix? But how are we going to foster that within our neighborhoods going forward?
Knowing the reality of inflation and how it's impacting people, how will you approach the next city budget with taxpayers in mind? And I'll tweak this one a little bit as well from previous asks. How relevant do you see inflation to city budget policy?
Well, after COVID especially, this is all increased in the concern that's going on, right? I mean, we've seen inflation increase, we've seen prices go up, we see the gas prices right now from everything going on in our society. And those are all factors we need to consider, because those are all things that our neighbors are experiencing on a daily basis. The reality of trying to balance a household budget in our city. And we need to understand that those are all impacts, and we have to be careful. I think it's easy to suddenly say, I'm going to increase taxes, I'm going to decrease taxes. And we hear all these different things in election seasons. But we have to understand when people are hearing that, they're also considering their own way of being able to pay for those taxes and be able to afford that. And especially whether it be housing, whether it be food, whether it be clothes, whatever the case may be, we have to think of that holistically. So it is a factor. When we talk about the city budget, we have to find a way to pay for things. We need to make sure that we're able to provide good quality services. And sometimes right away we gravitate toward taxes, but there's also the way of thinking about how do we approach economic development, how do we bring in jobs, how do we bring in employers and businesses that are going to continue to expand the tax base, how are we going to bring in other people into our communities, continue to expand the tax base, and find opportunities for us to balance that budget better. We are bonding at a very high rate right now. We have a lot of city debt, and that's not going to attract new businesses and more economic growth and development. So we have to think about it from a multifaceted approach. It can't just be one single answer. We're going to do this or that to taxes. We're going to do this. We have to work as a holistic community within the city council and talk about opportunities that might think outside the box at times, that are going to reflect that we are being respectful to each individual who is living, and each household who's living in the city of Green Bay, to make sure that we are putting the tax dollars to work at the best possible each time we approach a budget.
What has been done and or should be done to address areas in the city that are prone to flooding?
Well, especially, of course, we're talking about flooding on the east side a lot, obviously lately, and in my district, in District 11, we don't experience flooding in the same way. We need to be aware of our flooding issues. Of course, right behind my house, we have the creek, and we have other creeks in the district, and we experience, when rain falls and melts everything, there are concerns and there are issues, and we have heard, especially in the last few weeks, of people experiencing a lot of flooding in their basements and damage and property damage. Now, how are ways we can work with Public Works, helping work as a city to make sure we're investing